We initiate the biological fortification protocol by dismantling the single most dangerous lie in the corporate world, the idea that the mind and the body are separate entities. The soft man believes that because he works at a desk, because he is a knowledge worker, his physical vessel is irrelevant. He treats his body like a taxi that drives his brain to meetings. This is a fatal error. The architect understands that the brain is a biological organ completely dependent on the physiological ecosystem of the body. You cannot have a Formula One engine in a rusting 1990 sedan. The chassis will snap, the fuel lines will clog, and the engine will fail. If you are intellectually ambitious but physically weak, you are building a skyscraper on a swamp. The foundation will eventually liquidate and the structure will collapse. We are not talking about fitness for vanity. We are not talking about having abs for Instagram. We are talking about hardcore readiness. We are talking about the ability of your musculoskeletal system to act as a force multiplier for your ambition. We are talking about the biology of the savage gentleman. We must first redefine skeletal muscle. It is not just tissue for moving heavy objects. It is the largest endocrine organ in the body. When you contract muscle against heavy resistance, hardcore intensity, it secretes proteins called myokines. Scientists have dubbed these hope molecules. These myokines travel through the bloodstream and cross the blood-brain barrier. They act as a powerful antidepressant. They regulate your mood, your anxiety, and your cognitive clarity. The soft man, who has atrophied muscles, is chemically deprived of these molecules. He is operating in a state of biological depression. He feels anxious, overwhelmed, and fragile not because his job is hard, but because his body is silent. The architect lifts heavy iron not just to build his chest, but to dope his brain with the chemistry of resilience. When you are under extreme financial pressure, the man with the most muscle mass has the biological buffer to handle the cortisol load without breaking. The muscle absorbs the stress. It is metabolic armor. We must then analyze the glucose sink and the war for energy. Your brain consumes 20% of your daily energy, despite being only 2% of your mass. It demands a steady stream of glucose. In the sedentary man, the muscles are full and insulin resistant. When he eats lunch, the glucose has nowhere to go. It stays in the blood, causing inflammation, and then crashes, causing brain fog. The afternoon slump is not natural. It is a metabolic failure. The architect builds massive muscle tissue because muscle is a glucose sink. It sucks the sugar out of the bloodstream to store as glycogen. This keeps your blood sugar stable. Stable blood sugar means stable focus. You become a cognitive sniper. While the civilians are falling asleep at 3 p.m. or reaching for a donut, you are laser focused because your muscles have partitioned the nutrients effectively. You are using your physical mass to secure your mental acuity. You are earning the right to think clearly by paying the tax of physical exertion. Let us dig deeper into the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. This is often called miracle grow for the brain. It is the protein responsible for neuroplasticity, the ability to learn new skills, form new memories, and adapt to new markets. The most potent trigger for BDNF production is not reading books. It is high-intensity physical exertion, specifically moving heavy loads or sprinting. The body interprets this stress as a survival situation. We are hunting/fighting. We need to be smarter to survive. So it upregulates the brain's hardware. The architect trains like a beast to think like a genius. If you are not pushing your body to failure, your brain is slowly atrophying. The hippocampus, memory center, physically shrinks in sedentary adults. It physically grows in active ones. You are choosing between a rotting brain and a growing brain every time you decide whether to lift or sit. We must also confront the psychology of the dangerous man. Jordan Peterson said, "A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control." There is a profound psychological shift that happens when you know with absolute certainty that you are physically capable of violence. When you deadlift 500 pounds, or when you know you can sprint a mile in 5 minutes, or when you know you can defend yourself, your anxiety drops. You do not feel threatened by the petty aggressions of the corporate world. The passive-aggressive email from a coworker does not trigger a fight or flight response because your biology knows it is not a real threat. You have handled real weight. You have felt real crushing pressure. This gives you a stoic calm. The soft man is easily triggered because he is physically helpless. Deep down, he knows that if civilization collapsed, he would die. This existential fear hums in the background of his mind, draining his energy. The architect sleeps soundly because he is the hardest to kill human in the room. This subconscious confidence projects outward. People feel it. They respect the aura of capability. You negotiate from a position of power because you are not dependent on the system for your physical safety. We must then analyze the discipline transfer mechanism. There is no such thing as business discipline, separate from physical discipline. There is only one central reservoir of willpower, mediated by the anterior cingulate cortex. If you cannot force yourself to do the last rep when your legs are burning, you will not be able to force yourself to make the last cold call when your ego is hurting. The gym is the simulation lab for the boardroom. It is where you practice the art of suffering without quitting. When you are under a heavy barbell, you cannot negotiate, you cannot manipulate, you cannot charm. You either lift it or you get crushed. This binary reality keeps you honest. It kills the entitlement. The soft man thinks he deserves success. The architect knows that the iron does not care what he deserves. It only cares what he can do. This realization makes you a ruthless operator in business. You stop looking for shortcuts because you know they don't exist in the gym, so they likely don't exist in the market. You embrace the grind. You learn to love the resistance. Let us dig deeper into the longevity as an asset class. If you build a $10 million empire but die of a heart attack at 50, you have failed. You have executed a net negative trade. You traded your life for digits. The architect views his body as the primary asset that generates the yield. You must maintain the chassis. Muscle mass is the #1 predictor of longevity in the elderly. It protects you from falls, which kill the weak. It protects your metabolism, and it provides a reserve of amino acids for the immune system. If you get cancer or a severe infection, your body breaks down muscle to feed the immune system. If you are skinny fat, you run out of ammo and you die. If you are jacked, you have a massive war chest of amino acids to fight the disease and survive. You are building a biological fortress. You are preparing for the black swan event, whether it is a market crash or a virus. You are making yourself anti-fragile. We must also discuss the hormonal feedback loop of the alpha. High-intensity training upregulates testosterone and growth hormone. These are the driver hormones. Testosterone increases risk tolerance, competitiveness, and the drive for dominance. It is the chemical of the CEO. Cortisol is the chemical of the clerk. By training hard, you are tipping the scale in favor of the CEO chemistry. You are manually injecting yourself with the drive to conquer. The soft man, with his low T and high cortisol, seeks safety. He wants a steady paycheck. He fears the unknown. The architect, swimming in androgenic hormones, seeks expansion. He wants to build, destroy, and rebuild. This is not just a mindset. It is a blood state. You cannot think your way into high testosterone. You must act your way into it. You must do the things that high T animals do. Lift heavy objects, sprint, compete, and win. We must then address the postural dominance in the digital age. The tech neck and the rolled shoulders of the desk worker are signals of submission. Evolutionarily, covering the chest and lowering the head is a gesture of "please don't hurt me." It signals that you are lower in the hierarchy. When you train your posterior chain, back, traps, glutes, hamstrings, you are physically pulled into an upright, open posture. You expose the heart. This is the power pose. It signals, "I'm not afraid, I'm open to the world." Studies show that maintaining this posture actually increases testosterone and lowers cortisol. You are hacking your own psychology through your anatomy. When you walk into a meeting with a back capable of deadlifting 400 pounds, you occupy space differently. You do not shrink, you expand. The physical presence acts as a force multiplier for your words. Your ideas land harder because they are coming from a formidable vessel. Let us analyze the detoxification via sweat and blood flow. The sedentary body is a stagnant swamp. Toxins, heavy metals, and stress hormones pool in the tissues. Intense exercise is the flush. You increase blood flow by 400%. You sweat out the plastics and the cortisol. You force the lymph to move. You are cleaning the filter. A clean filter thinks clearer. Many architects solve their most complex business problems in the middle of a hardcore session. Why? Because they have finally silenced the noise and flushed the system. The runner's high, or the lifter's clarity, is a state of transient hypofrontality. The thinking brain shuts up, and the intuitive brain takes over. This is where the genius lives. You cannot access this state sitting in a chair. You have to earn the key with sweat. Finally, we arrive at the sovereignty of the vessel. Ultimately, keeping your muscles ready for hardcore is a declaration of freedom. If you are physically weak, you are dependent on the system for everything. You need the police to protect you, the doctor to fix you, the grocery store to feed you. The architect strives for asymptotic independence. He knows he can carry his wife out of a burning building. He knows he can ruck 10 miles if the car breaks down. He knows he can fight off an attacker. This knowledge changes your relationship with the world. You are no longer a subject, you are a citizen. You are a player, not a pawn. The computer is just a tool you use to amplify your will. It is not your master. Your master is your vision, and your body is the ironclad vehicle that delivers that vision to reality. The directive: stop viewing exercise as a chore or a vanity project. View it as biological maintenance for the money machine. Every rep is a deposit into your cognitive bank account. Every drop of sweat is a payment on your insurance policy against irrelevance. Do not be the genius in the jar. Be the genius in the tank. Build the muscle. muscle, protect the brain, dominate the market. The body leads, the mind follows, the empire grows. We initiate the operational phase of the biological fortification protocol by understanding that the ultimate purpose of building a hardcore physical vessel is not merely survival, but the acquisition of energy sovereignty, which is the only currency that matters in the high-performance economy. You must realize that your competition is tired. They are running on caffeine, sugar, and anxiety, which is a dirty fuel that burns out the engine, whereas the architect operates on the clean nuclear power of metabolic flexibility and mitochondrial density. We must deconstruct the concept of capacity, because the soft man thinks capacity is about how many hours he sits at the desk, but the architect knows capacity is about the intensity of focus per hour, and intensity is a biological expensive resource that requires a massive physiological surplus to sustain. When you train for hardcore performance, lifting heavy, sprinting, enduring heat and cold, you are expanding the battery life of your organism so that when the crisis hits at 5 p.m., when the deal is falling apart, when the team is panicking, you are not even at 50% of your operational load because your baseline for stress is set so high that the corporate emergency registers as a minor inconvenience. This is the reserve tank theory. You build a body capable of rucking 50 pounds for 10 miles, not because you have to, but so that carrying a laptop and a project feels weightless. You are engineering a safety factor into your biology in the same way an engineer builds a bridge to hold 10 times the expected load. If you build your body to handle only the load of a desk job, you will collapse the moment life adds a single extra pound of pressure, be it a divorce, a lawsuit, or a market crash. We must then ruthlessly analyze the gut-brain axis, because the modern diet is a biological weapon designed to pacify the population. The vagus nerve connects your gut directly to your brain, and 90% of your serotonin, the leadership hormone, is produced in the gut, not the head. If you are eating the slave diet, processed grains, seed oils, sugar, and soy, you are creating systemic inflammation in the gut which travels up the vagus nerve and manifests as brain fog, anxiety, and indecision. You literally cannot think like a king if you eat like a peasant. The architect treats his nutrition as biocode. Every bite is a line of code you are writing into your biological software. You eat meat for the amino acids that build the neurotransmitters of dominance, dopamine and tyrosine. You eat fats for the cholesterol, which is the raw material for testosterone. You avoid sugar because it creates the insulin roller coaster that makes you emotionally unstable. You must view food as fuel or poison with no neutral ground. The act of saying no to the donut in the break room is not a diet choice. It is a sovereignty test. It is you telling your basal ganglia that your long-term mission is more important than your short-term impulse. This discipline creates a psychological callus that transfers directly to business. If you can control your hunger, which is the most primal instinct, you can control your greed, your fear, and your ego in a negotiation. We must dig deeper into the glymphatic system and the weaponization of sleep. The soft man wears sleep deprivation as a badge of honor, claiming, "I'll sleep when I'm dead," which is a prophecy because he will die sooner. The architect understands that sleep is the construction phase of the empire. During deep, slow-wave sleep, the glymphatic system opens up and cerebrospinal fluid washes through the brain, physically removing the amyloid plaques, tau proteins, which are the metabolic waste products of thinking. If you do not sleep, these toxins remain, literally clogging the gears of your mind, reducing your IQ, your emotional intelligence, and your pattern recognition. You must treat your sleep sanctuary as a hyperbaric chamber. You black out the room. You tape your mouth to ensure nasal breathing, which increases oxygen saturation. You cool the room to trigger the hibernation signal. You are not resting, you are rebuilding. The hardcore training is the demolition. The sleep is the reconstruction. You cannot build muscle or neural pathways without the recovery phase. By prioritizing sleep with the same ruthlessness as your meetings, you ensure that you wake up every morning with a reset nervous system, ready to attack the day with the fresh aggression of a shark, while your competitors are waking up dragging the accumulated toxicity of the previous week. We must also confront the optical intimidation and the signaling power of the neck and hands. Human beings are primates, and we assess dominance instantly based on physiognomy. A thin, pencil neck signals vulnerability to the reptilian brain of others. It says, "I can be snapped." A thick, muscular neck signals durability and threat. It subconsciously tells everyone in the room, clients, partners, enemies, that you are harder to kill. kill. This is not vanity. This is evolutionary marketing. When you train your traps and your neck, you are changing the user interface of your character. You are projecting a signal of high agency. Similarly, calloused hands and a strong grip signal capability. In a world of soft, manicured hands, the hand that feels like wood commands respect. It triggers the competence heuristic in others. They assume that if you are disciplined enough to build a formidable body, you must be disciplined enough to manage their money or lead their project. You are using the halo effect to your advantage. People assume physically strong people are also smarter, more honest, and better leaders. This is a bias, yes, but the architect exploits every bias in the system. You build the armor not just to protect yourself, but to project the image of the warrior monk who is dangerous enough to be respected and disciplined enough to be trusted. Let us analyze the alter ego and the concept of the shadow. The gym is the place where you integrate your shadow, the part of you that is aggressive, violent, and primal. In the corporate world, you must be civilized. You must smile, shake hands, and use polite language. If you repress the shadow completely, it turns into nice guy syndrome, passive aggression, and eventually neuroticism. The hardcore physical training gives the shadow a job. When you are fighting a heavy squat, you are allowed to be violent. You are allowed to tap into the rage, the frustration, and the darkness. You channel that energy into the iron. This acts as a psychological release valve. By letting the beast out of the cage for 1 hour a day in a controlled environment, you can be the most calm, rational, and stoic man in the room for the other 23 hours. You are not repressing your aggression. You are sublimating it. You are turning the lead of anger into the gold of strength. This makes you dangerous but civilized, which is the definition of a gentleman. The soft man who never vents his aggression is a ticking time bomb. The architect is a controlled nuclear reactor. We must then address the memento mori of the physical standard. Ultimately, training is a war against death. Every time you lift, you are fighting sarcopenia, muscle loss, osteoporosis, bone loss, and neurodegeneration. You are raging against the dying of the light. This awareness of mortality gives you a time urgency that the sedentary man lacks. The sedentary man thinks he has forever. He drifts. The architect feels the clock ticking in his joints. He knows that his physical prime is a finite resource, so he maximizes it. This existential urgency bleeds into his work. He does not procrastinate because he knows entropy is always waiting. He executes with speed. He builds with permanence. He understands that his body is the only house he will ever truly own, and he refuses to let it fall into disrepair while he is busy chasing fiat currency. He demands total wealth, which is the trinity of financial freedom, time freedom, and biological freedom. To have the money but be unable to run up a flight of stairs is not success. It is a golden wheelchair. The architect demands the ability to enjoy the fruits of his labor with the vigor of a young man, even as he ages. Finally, we arrive at the integration of the machine. The goal is to reach a state where there is no separation between gym you and work you. You bring the intensity of the deadlift into the sales call. You bring the patience of the marathon into the strategic planning. You bring the recovery protocols of the athlete into the vacation. You are a holistic weapon. You understand that every time you choose comfort, you are voting for decay. Every time you choose the hardcore option, the cold shower, the heavy weight, the fasting window, you are voting for life. You are becoming anti-fragile. You are building a system that actually gets stronger under stress. When the market crashes, you don't panic. Your heart rate stays low because you have been in deeper waters. When the competition gets tough, you don't quit. You grind because you have trained your mind to love the lactic acid. You are not working at a computer. You are a savage using a computer. The tool has changed, but the organism remains a hunter. You adapt the environment to your biology, not your biology to the environment. You stand at your desk. You walk while you talk. You fast while you work. You are occupying the high ground of the biological hierarchy. You have paid the price in sweat to buy the right to lead. And in a world of sheep, the wolf who has mastered his own hunger and sharpened his own teeth is the only one who gets to decide the direction of the pack. The architecture is complete. The body is the fortress. The mind is the commander. The world is the territory. Conquer it.